there. Thank you, Brother Richard, for sitting down once again for Behind the Final Call cover story. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
And Eid Mubarak.
Eid Kareem, sir.
And of course, the question that I always ask, of course, is disaster, destruction, divine judgment, and divine judgment. Why this cover story? Of course, this is volume number 38, number 36, with June 11th on the cover. Why this cover story?
Well, we felt, it's always very important for us to present not just news that deal with current events, but news that is in a prophetic vein. News that bears witness to the truth of the warning given by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that warning being repeated and explained and stressed by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So one of those warnings, and you can actually see that article in this paper, The Four Great Judgments by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where he talks about America being punished by the forces of nature as part of divine chastisement for her murder, abuse of us as black people, and for her annihilation of the indigenous people of this nation. So what we saw really late May, we saw a number of natural disasters. But we say that these are more than just natural disasters. These are punishments from the Supreme Being himself. So that included flooding in Arkansas and flooding along the Mississippi River, storms that hit Alabama, tornadoes that hit Alabama, Ohio, Missouri, Texas even. There's even some flooding in California. So at one point, for example, on May 27th, the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management declared a state of emergency for all 77 counties in the state due to flooding, severe storms, tornadoes, and straight line winds. These are winds that come out of thunderstorms. In addition, over 20 inches of rain fell in 1 month in parts of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri. So we want to bear witness to the truth, and we want to get this warning out to our people. So we would have to look at scripture, which talks about God using the forces of nature. You can read the books by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Our Savior Has Arrived, The Fall of America, A Message to the Black Man. All of these contain divine warnings. And we have, of course, in the center article this week by Minister Farrakhan, The Divine Destruction of America, Can She Avert It? So these are all efforts to awaken our people, to warn that this is the time of judgment, and we need to get on the right side of Allah and his messenger, his Christ, and his servant in our midst, Minister Farrakhan.
Thank you very much. Of course, you mentioned the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's article, The Divine Destruction of America, Can She Avert It? We encourage you not to just read it, that's good, but there's always a different flavor to be able to hear the minister's lectures and see them. So there's different value that you get out of reading it, and there's something else different that you get out of being able to listen and see it when you had the opportunity to do so.
And I think even some of these messages that we may have heard before, I think it's very good often to hear them again.
Absolutely.
In light of a new circumstance, in light of changing events, in light of things that have happened today that bear witness to what was said yesterday. So these are very important warnings, and it's part of the mission of the Final Call to be not just a voice of news and information, but to be that prophetic voice, again, as we believe we are in the time of the Day of Judgment. And so it's important that people get that message, because we are taught the judgment will come when we have heard the divine warning. It doesn't matter whether we accept it or not. And this message has now been in America for almost 90 years. And we are seeing the continued expansion of these acts of destruction, natural destruction. And at one point, it seemed as though these calamities didn't touch black people. But now we're seeing very often that they do. So again, finalcall.com will get your print publication. We'll get your print copy of the publication, our publication. or go to finalcall.com and subscribe to the digital edition and have it delivered straight to you every week. Your email, your iPad, your iPhone, your Android, whatever you choose. And it has a number of features that make it attractive.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And we're also running a 99-cent sale. So that's a throwback to the 80s. So get that, go to finalcall.com and take advantage.
Yes, sir. Thank you. In that same line of discussion, of course, we don't call these destructions and these natural disasters that have occurred. We don't believe that there's some spook. We don't believe the devil's beating his wife or any of these things that we may have heard when these things have happened. But we know that a real living God is making them happen. And in that same line a little bit is that the on the article on page 2, it talks about the Defense Department still investigates UFOs. Pentagon spokesman admits. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, this was a very important piece that kind of came up around May 22nd in the New York Post. And this is one of the few times that the American government has admitted that it researched and investigated aerial phenomenon that is commonly known as unidentified flying objects. We, of course, say that they are well identified, and they have been identified again by the Honorable Muhammad and Minister Farrakhan, and that these UFOs, and there's also a new secret government, or what was a secret government initiative that is called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. So a Pentagon spokesperson admitted that the Defense Department still investigates. So if it still investigates, that means that they've been doing this for some time, right? But it still investigates these sightings and experiences of not just regular people, but these are pilots. These are military people who have seen these, what we call wheels, which reflect Ezekiel's prophecy of a wheel in the center of the air. And these crafts are humanly built. They are not from another world. They're from this world, built by and controlled by the Supreme Being, and made with the intent to destroy this world, in particular America being number one. So when we say this world, we're not talking about the planet, but we're talking about the civilization dominated by white people, controlled by white people on the planet today. And so, again, we don't believe in some otherworldly presence, but we believe that these events are divinely foretold of in the Bible and the Holy Quran, and that the great teacher of the Honorable Muhammad, Master Fard Muhammad, who we believe the great Mahdi is that supreme being. And you can read more about that in Message to the Black Man, being that which exists and supreme being the highest. So there are many things that we really don't understand and things that we have been taught that have been inaccurate. These quote unquote UFOs are one of them. So movies and science fiction and books and comic books have really made these crafts other than what they are, but a very advanced technology, very advanced weapon systems, and again, these crafts seen by military personnel. You've had pilots, military and non-military, that have clocked these crafts and talked about how they move, how quickly they move, the amount of energy that it takes to sustain them at the levels that they're seeing. So you can read more about that at finalcall.com. Definitely, though, you want to go to Fall of America, Our Savior Has Arrived, and Message to the Black Man by the Honorable Muhammad, so you can truly understand what's going on here and make up your mind in terms of what you want to do or don't want to do. But before you make a decision, it would be good to have good information.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We got a few things going on in politics. I don't know where we want to jump first. We got Trump that's usually in the news, but we also have a new mayor. Yeah. And some things that are going into Congress. I'll give it to you.
Well, we'll start with Chicago's new mayor, and you know, she's recently sworn in, recently inaugurated. And one of the first major things of her new administration was the Memorial Day weekend, which is typically, unfortunately, a time of great violence in the city of Chicago. And so between May 24th, which was a Friday, and May 27th, which was a Monday, there were as many as 43 people shot, and many of those shootings were concentrated on the south and west sides of the city in Black and Latino neighborhoods. So The mayor obviously expressed some concern about these shootings. She actually put more cops on the street hoping to curb the shootings. It didn't go as well as she would have liked, but she also made some additional statements that there needs to be reinvestment into these neighborhoods and into these communities. So we're hoping that as she continues to move forward, that she will keep that in mind. She's talked about wanting to open an office in her administration that deals with some of the social problems, and it deals with services, and it deals with connecting those who are coming out of prison back into services and jobs so that they can become productive citizens. So we wish her well, because certainly the better she does, the better the city does. She was elected with a lot of hope. Of course, some people are still skeptical at this time, but this whole relationship between the community and the police, you still have the same superintendent that you had under the former mayor, Superintendent Eddie Johnson. So whether he stays or goes will be interesting to see. There's some that feel that he should be gone already. Chicago Police Department has a very low clearance rate when it comes to solving murders. I think something like maybe 22%. So that means you've got about an 80% chance of getting away with murder in this city. And the police department has a $1 billion with a B, $1 billion budget. So these are some of the issues that remain. It cannot be expected that the mayor will resolve these things in a day, a week, or a month. And she's also calling for people to get involved, organizations to get involved. So all of us have a part to play, and we need to watch what's going on, and we need to get involved.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we're not going to deal with both of them, so I'll give it to you. We want to talk about what's going on in the Congress as it relates to black men, or we want to talk about your favorite president?
Well, we'll skip the president for a minute. But Congresswoman Frederica Wilson out of Florida is putting forward legislation that wants to take a look at and establish a commission to look at the problems and solutions that black men are facing in this country. This kind of harkens back to some things we saw a couple decades ago when they were talking about black men as an endangered species. So we'll see how far that legislation goes, but obviously this is something that is important. And speaking of that, this is a different story. In Hartford, Connecticut, you have prison inmates that were, this is again, I think one of the very nefarious and very dangerous and very important stories that we need to always tell. In particular for our brothers and sisters that are in the prison system. We cannot forget about them, and we cannot not advocate for them. This is out of Hartford, Connecticut, where prison inmates said they received injections from a vial of insulin that was potentially tainted with hepatitis. So they're saying that someone, personnel in the prison, supposed to be delivering insulin to inmates, used the same needle for more than one person and may have injected these inmates with hepatitis. This isn't 1967. This isn't 1957. This isn't 1949. It isn't 1929. This is 2019. And so the inmates have settled there. They actually went to court, and they have finalized settlements in April, and it's calling for 15 inmates to receive between $750 and $2,000. Really seems like meager amounts. But again, we always have to stay in tune with what is happening to our people. The vast majority are going to come out of prison and come back to our communities. So we have to make sure as best we can that they are not treated like animals, that they're not experimented on, that they're not taken advantage of. So that's our job, and we continue to watch. And of course we have Student Minister Abdullah Muhammad, who's the National Prison Reform Minister, who goes into prisons all around the country. But that's a vitally important issue. So then we have the increasing talk of impeachment about Mr. Trump. If you watch some of the network news, you're probably tired of hearing about it, because it seems as though this is all they talk about, this debate back and forth. But it again is something we should keep an eye on, whether or not it happens. And impeachment simply means that the House of Representatives would take up this case against the president. The Justice Department has ruled that while a president is in office, he cannot be prosecuted. So you had the Mueller report, which pointed out some potential wrongdoing by the president and laid out and made the case that the Justice Department could not move, but it should be Congress that should move. So that's the current debate going on. You need to watch it, stay in touch with it. But not just that, continue to watch a variety of news sources. Definitely keep the final call there so that we can stay informed as much as possible.
Yes, sir. And when you talk about or have any discussion about the black man, it can't be argued, really, the impact that the Nation of Islam has had, and particularly on black men. Of course, our community as a whole. We have a story about the brothers here in Chicago hitting the streets like they're doing all across the country. But can you talk about why this article is important?
It is always important to showcase the work of the Nation of Islam, and in particular the men, the fruit of Islam. So these are brothers that work around the country to deliver light, life, and power to our people by taking the final call. Remember, the final call is a newspaper with a mission. It is the resurrection of our people. So in order to be effective, you have to have truth, but you have to have somebody that's willing to tell the truth. You have to have someone who is willing to spread the truth. And this is the incredible work that the Fruit of Islam do on a daily basis all around the country. So we're very proud to be able to showcase some of the work of the brothers here in Chicago who are out under the leadership of Central Region Captain Dwayne Muhammad. So when you support these brothers, you support yourself. So when you see them, understand they're not paper boys. These are little messengers and warners. And I think more and more our people are heartened when they see the FOI, clean cut, well dressed like yourself. It inspires hope. It inspires vision. It inspires belief that we can actually change our conditions. So we say to the mighty FOI, keep up the good work. We salute you, we support you, and we right there with you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, of course, we know that a nation can rise no higher than its woman, of course. And so we don't want to just talk about the efforts and what the black man is doing. But, of course, we said the Nation of Islam is all around, not just around the country, but around the world.
Absolutely.
And as the black man is going out in the streets and having the impact and efforts of change, in the streets of Chicago, we're having the impact and efforts of change with black men as it relates to those who have been caught up into the prison system, of those who are currently incarcerated, as well as those who are being blessed to come out, that there's definitely an impact that they're having. But of course, the MGT, the mighty MGT, Muslim Girls Training and General Civilization class is doing an effort and work that is being noted as well. And we have our sisters in Richmond. Can you tell us a little bit about
the Sisters in
what's
Richmond
going on
had a
there?
Women's Day program in late May. They had an incredible number of speakers. They talked about healthy lifestyles and how they need to live, healthy relationships, money management. And this is very important. They also had Sister Audrey Muhammad, who's the publisher of Virtue Magazine. This is very important because the development of our women is really critical to our development as a nation and our success. We don't want to go, and we're not going anywhere without black women, but highly educated, highly developed, highly aware black women. And this is what the Nation of Islam produces. And the sisters are putting together these marvelous programs for themselves to not only learn for themselves, but to also spread that information into the community. So you have not only this type of activity, but you've had sisters going out, in particular during Ramadan, the month of fasting and prayer, that have been going out feeding people, along with the FOI being there. They've gone out and distributed toiletries to people that are homeless and trying to do all of these acts of kindness as the Holy Quran instructs us to do. So our holy book, the Holy Quran, talks about the believing men, the believing women, the sacrificing men, the sacrificing women, the charitable men, the charitable women. So there's a duality there and there's a partnership there. And we never want to break that partnership. We want to strengthen it and we want to spread it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I want to jump to an article that I'm quite sure that you're familiar with, and that is the editorial of the week.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, it's very important because there's an enemy, a real enemy, that we're dealing with that continues to come after us. but we're not taking that position of moving out, laying down. So can you tell us why the editorial Black Love, Black Jews, and the plots for an anti-Black enemy?
Well, we hope you'll go to finalcall.com and read it. But one of the tactics that the enemy loves to use is to put us against one another. So that instead of coming out themselves directly, they want to position and encourage people to attack us. So I was really struck by a piece that was written by a sister, Tamar Manasseh, who is with MASK, Mothers Against Senseless Killings in Chicago. And she works in the Inglewood neighborhood on the south side of Chicago, which is a neighborhood that has a tremendous number of problems but great potential. And her group and others have been working to help bring down the level of violence just by being a presence and just by creating real community and just by engaging our people and engaging our children and getting us to be engaged in more productive activity. She also happens to be Black and Jewish. And so she wrote a piece that was in Forward, which is a Jewish publication. And she talked about going to a chicken place, and she really felt, she said, for the first time threatened because she was questioned about her Jewishness. And you can read about this, of course, in the Final Call. She was questioned, and one of the men who questioned her started to talk about Jews and their attacks on Blacks, in particular their attacks on the minister. And so this was rather painful to her. And she said that, and I'll read this. She's talking about as a Jew, all anti-Semitism hurts me. This is Tamar Manasseh speaking. But it's not Farrakhan's followers who have been murdering Jews in synagogues, or who drive their cars through crowds of protesters, or who scream that Jews will not replace us. His admirers are my neighbors. She lives right in the Black neighborhood in Inglewood. And to the Black community where I live, Farrakhan has nothing to do with Muslims or Jews, or even with anti-Semitism. It has to do with racism. You might think you hate Louis Farrakhan because he's anti-Semitic, talking to the Jewish people. But to my Black neighbors, he's disliked because he's Black, like them and like me. So it really struck me, this sister's pain, and we have to recognize the authenticity of her experience. And so what I wanted to say in the editorial is that we have a real enemy, and that enemy is not our sister Tamar Manasseh. And that the problem is anti-Blackness that she has experienced and written about, that she has suffered in the Jewish community. So we can never allow misunderstanding and even anger to turn us against one another, because she doesn't enjoy the power, she doesn't enjoy the privilege, she doesn't enjoy the protection that white Jews, Ashkenazi Jews benefit from. She's not part of the ADL, which is lied on and try to destroy the minister in the Nation of Islam. The other thing is that Blacks following the law of Moses go way beyond white people. So we got to be clear on understanding the original people and our place in the world. So we wanted to say that, and we wanted to say that we believe that the truth today is that Black people, including our sister, are the people of God's choice, and that we fulfill the biblical prophecy of Abraham's seed, going into bondage under people in a strange land for 400 years until the coming of God. We believe that that time is now. And I close the editorial by saying, we know who the enemy is, and our enemy is the same. The enemy of our sister, who deserves to be respected and protected, and she deserves the right to be able to practice her faith in peace, right? But we know who the enemy is, and our enemy is the same. Her enemy and our enemy. It's anti-Blackness and racism trying to hide behind the cover of Jewishness. This is white Jews. And so we have to be real clear. And so I said, we are one family, that we are one people of many beliefs and many faiths. The enemy has no respect or love for any of us, but we must and should love and respect one another. So that's, I thought it was a very important editorial. We've also got a great article, kind of companion by Brother Student Minister Demetric Muhammad, who's been doing a great job. If you've been following and reading the Final Call lately, you know that he has been a consistent Voice. We've been running his columns almost every week now for a month or past couple of months. So we thank him for his contribution. But he talked about some of the sources when it comes to looking at what the minister says and where the research comes from. So again, read, check it out, let us know what you think.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Now, when you read his articles and you see what's going on, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that separation was not only the best, but the only solution. And as we see the attacks that continuously occur against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, you know, we have to definitely begin to see and explore another way of existence for our people.
Yeah.
And of course, the discussion of reparations comes up often. And so we want to make sure that all who are able to attend, that they definitely try to make it out to NCOBRA to meet in Detroit, June 20th and 23rd. For those who have not been following us, we've mentioned this before, but can you give us a little something about that?
Well, NCOBRA is the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, and this will be their annual convention from the 20th to the 23rd. You can get more at ncobraonline.org, ncobraonline.org. But this is an organization that for decades has fought, researched, presented arguments for this very important issue of reparations. And so their view is this focus on the full repair of black people. And this is what Cam Howard, National Male Chair, because they have a male chair and a female co-chair for NCOBRA. And again, their conference will be June 20th through the 23rd in Detroit, and Minister Farrakhan, by Allah's grace, will deliver a keynote address, so you don't want to miss that. But Brother Cam Howard said a lot of people don't have a clear idea of what reparations is, especially in light of all the presidential candidates' talk that is being steadily generated around reparations. And NCOBRA understands reparation means full repair for our people. So it's going to be 3 days, 3-day conference with workshops and sessions. One of the other presented speakers will be Judge Greg Mathis. So come on out, go to ncobraonline.org, get more information, be there, learn, participate. There's going to be a great town hall meeting addressed by Minister Farrakhan as well.
Praise to Allah, thank you. And of course, during that same weekend, for those who are in Chicago, in the Chicagoland area, our brother, the math doctor, student minister Shaheed Muhammad, will be doing his yearly program right here at Mosque Mariam, Saving Our Boys. So you want to make sure you check that out. And Allah willing, I'll be participating in one or the other or both. And
you can read about all of this in the final call.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It'd be great if you could be there, but if you can't be there, you should definitely keep abreast on what's going on in the article. Of course, as we always say, we're not going to try to even attempt to cover all of the news that's in the paper, because you got to go ahead and get your subscription to the paper. Get your subscription to the paper. Many of us have been supporting the minister and the ban that has been placed on Facebook, and we put the post, "We are Farrakhan," but we can't take a passive approach to our response. And part of responding to what our enemies are doing and have done and continue to do is that we have to finance those movements that are helping to support and benefit our people. And of course, the final call is the official news organ of the Nation of Islam, and in truth, the official news organ of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Absolutely.
So we want to make sure we're supporting.
And the voice of black people in America today.
Yes, sir.
That's why it's so important for black folk, and for, anybody, but in particular our people, to actually read the paper, to actually see what's in here. So when you see the brothers out on the street, take a minute, spend $2. You might be surprised at the information that you find. We try to pack a lot into the paper. We want to encourage you to come out July 5th through the 7th for the Muhammad Farms Founders Days. Did you know we had farms in Georgia?
Yes, sir.
Today, not yesterday. So come on out, but you got to read that in the final call and read other great. We got a brother Derek Muhammad doing a great job in Houston. And on June 16th, they're going to have a day of encouragement for black fathers. So a combination of good news, prophetic news, warning. We try to give you a little bit of everything. Groove by groove. Social Fellowship hosted a college tour for teams from Philly. They happened to go to my alma mater, Morgan State University. So again, you got to read and see what we're doing to try to do something for ourselves. It's very important.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the other things is, of course, you know, the truth can't be sold. We ask for donations for the paper, but we're always giving you something. And so many of you may have noticed the QR codes that have been on the back of the paper the past few weeks that allow you to jump straight to so that you can order the lecture. But we also have an additional QR code in this paper that would allow you to get a digital download of some of what's been going on with these disasters, which is the cover story. Can you talk a little bit about that document? That
yeah, well, this is again, it's about disaster preparedness, right? So when you have a divine messenger, a divine warner, a divine leader, a divine servant, he tells you beforehand what's coming. That's what a warning does. An effective warner tells you before something happens so that you can prepare and not be victimized. And so if you go to the paper, if you go to the digital edition, you can go and you'll be able to download for free something that we put together about disaster preparedness. And it behooves all of us to have some water, some food in our homes, connect with our neighbors and our families, so that as things happen, we won't be victimized, but we will be prepared.
Yes, sir.
And of course, we're at the foodie spot, which is 7350 South Stony Island Avenue. Another example of the work of Muslims engaged in community building, engaged in making our community safe and decent places to live. So come on by, spend some money, get some food, get some great bean pie, get some drinks, and come to a place where you're welcomed and treated like you're welcome, as opposed to being treated like we really don't want you here, and where people throw your money at you and tell you basically get out.
Behind a bulletproof
Behind
glass.
3 inches of bulletproof glass. So, but come on in and enjoy yourself. It's a great place, great experience, great food, great people, great bean pies. That's right, the world famous bean pie. And other products. So just come on down, 7350 South Stony Island Avenue. Support institutions that are community builders, as opposed to those who simply suck the blood and the resources out of black neighborhoods. This place doesn't do that. It's built on building the community, so let's support it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you don't have anything else,
I think that's it, man.
Then of course, as we said in the beginning, Eid Mubarak, we pray that all of the Muslims that know they're Muslims and the ones that don't, are having a blessed Eid, a celebration and celebrating this month of intense heat and sacrifice and reflection. And of course, please continue to support those institutions that really have your best interests in mind and have the desire to support you. Until next time, Behind the Final Call cover story. Assalamu alaikum.
All right.